All right, welcome everyone. March 15th, 2021 regular Board of Trustees meeting in Orange Township. Call this meeting to order. Ms. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Grumbles,
Here.
Ms. Tranto,
Here.
Mr. Rivers. Mr. Rivers,
Sorry, muted. Here.
thank you.
Okay. Open with any agenda changes? Hearing none, I would like to add one small thing. We'll wait for the administrative report pertaining to the community garden project and making the lease came back over the weekend, so want to get Andrew appointed if possible to sign that lease for $1 so that we can move forward with the garden project. So I'll bring that up later on. Hearing no other agenda changes, are there any concerns with the items on the consent agenda?
I had a question about North Road Park Phase 2 building design. I thought we had put everything on hold.
I believe those are old invoices, Debbie.
Okay.
I can go back to the backup real quick and look, but I'm
But if we've already paid for these services, are we really wanting to put that on hold?
Yeah, I think that those charges you're referring to, and Andrew might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Andrew or Bill, but I think that's from when they were at our township meeting, the work that was done from that township meeting back in December. Does that sound right, gentlemen?
I believe you're right, Lisa, and I think it included some of that work on the splash pad as well when we were looking at that option.
And just to address the question specifically, they were directed. I talked to Brooks directly and said, no more, stop. Bill us for nothing further. So assuming this brings us to current, that should be it until we pick it back up after the Parks Master Plan.
Thank you.
So no concerns over the consent agenda.
I do not have any.
Okay. Back to the agenda here. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-085 and 21-086. The consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Brings us to development and zoning. Ms. Pawnee.
All right, thank you. I do have a meetings and hearings report this evening. Val, if you can pull that up as a backup item, we can go over that. It would be the zoning report. Well, I'll just go through it. If the trustees have any questions, everything's on the Facebook page and on our website.
I want to pause, Michelle, and give Val a second to pull that up. I'd like to have it up in case anyone following along online doesn't have a copy of it. Just out of respect for potential, I don't know if there is any viewers, but just so they can see what we're talking about. Val, if you're able to find that in the backup, I think it's the first or second document in the backup. If not, I don't know if you can give control or if Michelle, if you can grab the screen and put it up or something of that nature.
Okay. Yeah, Val, can you just stop sharing? I'll share my screen. Okay. Okay. For tomorrow's hearing on Tuesday, March 16th, we have the first hearing on rezoning application number zone-21-02. They are requesting a planned elderly residential district over on South Old State. We have received some resident concerns regarding this application, so we plan on handling it similar to how we did the North Farms one last week. Following that, we have the Board of Zoning Appeals this Thursday, March 18th at 6 p.m. We will have 3 applications that evening. The first is in regards to a model home over at the Enclave at Abbey Knoll. So that is the new subdivision over at the Old Horse Farm on South Old State. Following that is an area variance request for a pergola patio over in the Estates of Glen Oak. And the last application for the BZA Thursday evening is the Life Point Church signage. This is the 3rd hearing on it, and we're hoping to wrap it up as the applicant has been working diligently with our board to get as close as compliant with our signage standards. Following that, on Tuesday, April 13th at 7 p.m., we will have the second hearing on rezoning application number zone-21-01, and that is for the North Farms condominium development. And lastly, we do have a pending BZA application for an area variance in Wilshire that has not been scheduled at this time. And that is all I have for the zoning report. So Trustee Grumbles, I can go on to the next item if you'd like.
Yes, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. So the next item I have on the agenda is a discussion of possible action regarding a zoning commission member. We had a few applicants come in to serve on our board, and I'd like to recommend Mark Freeman as our zoning commission alternate. He's been a pretty active member in the township for the past year or so. He recently moved to the township and has sought interest in serving on our board. And we only have an alternate position available at this time, but we would like to fill that as we do use our alternates frequently.
Are there any comments or concerns with the proposed addition to the board, the zoning commission?
Mr. Freeman's been very engaged, seems very eager to join, and I think will be a great addition.
Yeah, so I'm good with it.
All right.
Right.
I will coordinate with Val on helping her with her.
Okay. If Val, if you want to pull the template back up, that'd be great.
All right, we're on.
All right, I make a motion to approve resolution 21-087, appointing Mark Freeman as an alternate member of the Orange Township Zoning Commission.
Second?
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonnie. Mr. Cowan, operations.
Good evening. Here we are. I have 2 resolutions for your consideration this evening. The first is a form that we received from Delaware County Engineers, talking with Mary Ann, who's had much more experience with this than I. This is setting stop limits and speed limits on these 2 road extensions. One is Green Meadows Drive and one is Graphics Way. Green Meadows Drive, it was extended by 0.2 miles in length, and Graphics Way by 0.14 miles in length. So I think the board, if they can approve that, will send this information back up to Delaware County Engineer's Office. The second item is for a soccer field use agreement with Columbus United Soccer. After several different negotiations and squeezing Columbus United into available slots that we have, we finally were able to reach a consensus that a schedule that worked for Columbus United. I'm happy for that. So appreciate your consideration of that. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. Hearing none, I'd just like to make a quick comment about something on the consent agenda, the Aqua Dock season pond, the pond maintenance for the season for our park ponds. As you know, Aqua Dock's a local company right here in Lewis Center. I was really happy their quote I received was just under the quote for Lake Doctors, who we've used for many, many years. One thing nice about Aqua Dock, we're talking to the representative, said, you know, when they show up on site, they have their trucks loaded with different chemicals for who knows what situation they might observe during that visit. Where Lake Doctors, all they did a good job. We were buying like 2 specific style of treatments. So they may come upon a situation that may warrant something that we haven't paid for, so they wouldn't treat it. This way, Aqua Dock, they said they treat whatever, again, the situation is when they arrive on site. So I was really pleased to see our quote and happy to Township's going to do business with them.
Hey, Bill,
Yes.
just a kind of a contract question in that regard. With Aqua Dock, the 15,000, is that all inclusive, or will there be additional charges associated with what they encounter, if you will?
That's all inclusive for every pond in the township. Township Hall, North Orange Park, 2 ponds, Loveland Park, or Loveland property, Glen Oak Park, and 2 ponds at our administration building. The large pond and the one immediately behind the office building. So
we bought an outcome, basically. We contracted with them to just make our ponds well, if you will, as opposed to treating algae or those 2 other circumstances, right?
that's correct.
That's awesome. That's a job well done, Mr. Cowan. Thank you.
I appreciate Aqua Dock and their cooperation. I'm really happy to have that.
Big fan of outcome-based contracts instead of transactions. So I think that's a favorable thing for us to start working towards. Anything else?
Well, I just see, on the agenda, there's a pool discussion to follow, and of course, I think Trustee Grumbles, I think you have a lease agreement and a garden discussion under operations as well. So
Right.
that's all I have for 2 resolutions.
Okay. So we'll get any questions with the resolution content? Hearing none. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-088, acknowledging roads.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles? Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-089, declaring a reasonable and safe prima facie speed limit for certain highways under the township jurisdiction and located within commercial subdivisions or residential subdivisions.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve Sorry, I think that's it. There was one more.
Soccer one,
Yep.
Columbus
Yep.
United.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-090, Columbus United Soccer for use of recreational premises located at North Orange and North Road Parks.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Do we want to hold the pool conversation after exec and the garden conversation after exec so we can get through the resolution content and get the folks that are here for that? Sorry, I guess we have someone here from pools. So let's open the conversation, I guess, then for pools. I know we had a meeting on site last week and had started discussing how the pools would operate this year. I also reached out to surrounding areas and spoke with Highland in Westerville and did some research on a couple other areas. And I know Ms. Kraft looked into, I believe, Powell as well. And we had a pretty good conversation on site to discuss options and way ahead. But I wanted to ensure that the collective board was given an opportunity to discuss any concerns they had and kind of migrate towards finalizing our plans. We have a lot of options this year, and I think the feeling from our partners overseeing the pool operations is that there are no changes right now with the guidance we've received from the health district prior. So we would have to move forward under that that guidance outside of the fact that the pools or the restroom facilities, I believe, don't need to be cleaned as long as we have sanitary wipes or sanitary spray or something of that nature available. But the thought we came up with on site was folks will bring their own furniture. They'll bring their own blankets or towels or whatever they decide to sit with. We thought about giving everybody a spot. However, thinking through that, I would say if we just have everyone observe social distancing, that would probably be easier to manage. Highland, I talked with them. They're not painting squares all over the pool. They're just going to have people maintain social distance. And to the point made in our meeting, Fred had mentioned that folks are becoming pretty well accustomed to what that entails and are abiding by those expectations much more favorably than the start of the pandemic last year. We had discussed potentially eliminating concessions for the year as well, just because of the complexities related to serving food. Highland is actually serving grab and go handhelds only. They're not cooking or preparing any food. So that's an option depending on what we discover. We're gonna, I know Mike Kelly and some other folks are looking into vending options for food as well to complement our Pepsi agreement, which we would probably look to expand upon. So folks have more machines or more access to self-service. We discussed using the fence that opens up by the parking lot as an exit and having the front of the operation for entry only. And then from a rate perspective, we looked at different options. I got the rates sent out for Highlands pool, and they're very comparable to what we had originally planned for residents, but for non-residents, the rates are slightly higher. And I would like to propose that we, the resident rates were a little bit lower than what we had rather, and the non-resident were slightly higher. And I would like to propose that we take a similar approach where we extend some grace to our residents. And if non-residents are interested in coming, they would have to pay a premium, obviously. We had also discussed a program for senior citizens that would give them an additional discount. And Highland is actually using, I think, the first 2 or 3 hours for organized swim. So it would be senior citizens, day camps, swim teams, that kind of thing. But they've structured it that way, and any additional capacity, they will fill up once they have that finalized. So just a few details that our surrounding pools are using that I thought were pertinent. We might want to keep in mind, but just wanted to share that. If anyone has any questions on the call, or Fred, if you want to chime in, feel free. But wanted to share what we had discussed and a few updates over.
Well, I know we got Bill, this is Andrew. I know we've got Bill, Mike, and Fred on the call. So I think just to set the table for everyone is Mike's made some calls of some surrounding pools, and I'll let him jump in. I think that Plain Township and Delaware are going to open pretty much like normal with some restrictions. I think, we've talked a lot internally, as Trustee Grumbles mentioned. We'll be looking at ways to minimize the food handling, minimize the lines, try to move people through quickly. Might look at some expanding the delivery service and whatnot to the pool. And I think when we talked to Fred, the boxes were something I think we were going to at least sort of look at to begin with. I talked to Mike again today. I think the surrounding townships that we've talked to are in Delaware City are not going to put out the furniture because of all the sanitation that's involved in that. So I think we would be asking the residents to bring the equipment with them to sit on, and they can certainly bring some food in too. Talking through sort of our internal processes, this would be the first year that we would completely use Rec Desk for the pool. We plan to go fully online with that last year. It was new this year. It would be new this year because it didn't happen last year. One of the limitations, and we talked with Fred about this at the meeting, and I know Mary Ann did some follow-ups, is the block scheduling is not something that Rec Desk seems to readily support when it comes to the pools. So Fred recommended another piece of software that we could go out and look at. There's some downsides with doing the block scheduling if there's problems with weather, if we have to close the pool for sanitation or issues like that. We could be potentially looking at refunds and those sorts of things, particularly with lightning. That could wipe out an entire day. So I think, where we sort of landed internally with the unknowns with the new software and going forward is trying to recommend at least what our other government pools are doing, like the city of Delaware and Plain Township, is try to have as much of a normal pool season as possible until we get the restrictions lifted to let everyone in and do all that kind of stuff. So I think to that end, I'll let certainly Bill and Fred and Mike chime in there. I think what we were thinking was to help manage the demand, because Fiscal Officer Kraft and Mary Ann pulled some numbers. I think we sold about 1,000 memberships last year that represented about 4,800 people. So, that number with limited capacity seems like we would want to try to hew pretty closely to just allowing memberships and forego day passes and all that stuff for now. So I think that's where we're at internally on what we've talked about as we've talked to our software vendors and other governments and whatnot. So I don't know, Bill, is anything else you want to add to the conversation, or Mike?
Well, this is Bill. I think you covered it very well. And that one important feature is, we are set up Rec Desk to do season passes, and we're ready to roll with that. And that is part of the contractual obligation for Mr. Intern's company, Columbus Pool Management, to issue season passes. So we've been looking forward to that. You know, it's something we were going to do last year. Of course, we didn't open up. One other quick point to mention, with the restrictions still in place with CDC guidelines and Delaware Health District, the pool area governs the pool surface area governs the number of patrons that we're allowed to have in. And that both pools, the lap pool and the large swim pool, total 11,325 square feet. You allow 36 square feet per patron. You divide the number, you get 314 patrons. So to follow up on what Andrew was saying, I think when you hit that 314 number for the day's admittance, you pretty much have to, I would think, cut them off unless there's changes in the guidelines to come.
And I think, Bill, remind me, how many people did we think we could have into the pool at the same time? Because
314.
well, in the actual water, because we're
Oh.
restricted on that too, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we figured much less than that. I can't recall the number, but
So, and I don't know if Fred's received any different information. I know we're looking into getting the slide opened. I think that's a real possibility. We have some sanitation requirements on that, so we got to sort of figure all that out. We're still trying to figure out if we can open up the little play. I don't know what you want to call it, Bill. And maybe you and Fred have already resolved this because of some of the sanitation requirements there. So, you know, we're still going to have to sort of play that out and see what we're allowed and not allowed to do at this point. Is that right, Bill? Am I remembering correctly?
yeah, that's a good point too, Andrew. Something I didn't consider was, according to CDC guidelines, the slide has to pretty much be closed, but if we can work that out with the disinfecting, that'd be great. And the play structure that's in the pool, in the walk and end of the large pool, that may have to be closed as well, because even though there's water pouring over some of the structure, the chlorinated water doesn't touch all the structure. So that would have to be sanitized as well on a regular basis. So just a lot of little things that come into play.
So, I mean, I think the bottom line is, and I think Bill and I have shared this with the board before, I mean, we would like to open as close to normal as possible. I mean, we have the hope that as Governor DeWine continues to lift some restrictions, the health district may ultimately say, hey, we can go back to how it was before, but we don't know. And when we talked to Fred about that, and I think his opinion is there's going to be some continuing CDC guidelines that might drive the health department to regulate the pool in a certain way, even if DeWine sort of gives the green light for, you know, no masks and 100% capacity everywhere else. So, you know, we're going to have to continue to adapt throughout the season. And I think that's why, you know, we wanted to sort of take a approach as trying to be as much like normal up front and give us the capacity to expand as perhaps we're given greater capacity to let people in and, you know, do things at that point, like sell day passes and allow non-residents in and that kind of stuff. So, you know, and as was mentioned, we haven't completely nailed down the food situation. I know Mike you know, might have something to chime in here. I think he's talked to 3 different vendors about the sorts of machines we can put in there. I think one of them, you know, even looking at something like trying to have an ice cream machine and things of that nature. So, you know, we've looked at some packaged food as well to try to, again, make it so there's not lines, there's not crowding. People can get their food and get back, and we don't have to worry about social distancing problem or what else. So I don't know, Mike, if you have anything you want to share about any of the conversations you've had with the pools. And, you know, one of the other things that I think Mike wanted to emphasize, and I've shared it with the board, and I'll just make sure it's said publicly, is we haven't fired some of these things up for a year and a half now. I mean, it's been quite a while since some of these pumps and things have really been run, and, you know, the pool's been full and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we don't anticipate any reason that we're going to have a delay, but certainly there would be the possibility of equipment failing and needing to be replaced and additional expenses. And we're just not going to know until we fire it all up. Is that fair, Bill or Mike? Am I stating things accurately, or am I talking out of turn?
That is correct. That concerns me the most. The slide pump is on the list for replacement tonight. So if that gets approved, I will call Patterson Pump or Patterson Pools to order that. But that's the only pump so far, knock on wood, that needs attention. But that's my big concern, is the mechanical end of the pool. Once you fire up that pool, and the uncertainty concerns me. So that's all I have.
And my argument is, since we know that, we know it's a concern, I suggest we get the pool fired up in April. So we see what's happening, what works, what doesn't work, and we have plenty of time to make sure it's up and running by Memorial Day weekend.
I feel like Bill or Mike, I feel like one of you recently started talking to me about getting the pool filled. So I think that's already been on somebody's radar. I just don't remember whom.
Yeah, I mentioned it to Mike, and we talked about it too. I think I mentioned it to you, Andrew. Yep. Of course, now we have Columbus Pool Management on board. That would be helpful too, to have someone from their group out there, and while we do that work, it's always good to have that extra set of eyes.
So I guess, for the board to make a decision moving forward, that's sort of the parameters we had. I had a conversation with Mary Ann today. I mean, this is, again, sort of her first year running rec desk. I think doing things close to normal, we feel comfortable. We feel like we've got the staffing for it. If we're going to do things different than how we've done it in the past, then we might need to buy additional software. We might need some consultants or, third-party contractors, and we might need some additional support. And then we would certainly have to talk to Columbus Pool about whether any of that stuff is sort of material changes to the contract. But, again, that's where I think we're at. So and again, Bill or Mike, if you got something else, I think I feel like we've pretty well covered everything for the board's consideration.
Well, it was a year ago that you had all the different entities in Delaware County that have a public pool, along with the health district, that got together, and there was just so many unknowns, in trying to seek guidance and look at what the restrictions were. I recently spoke with our health commissioner, and we know so much more now, and nothing's set in stone. However, the feeling is, in general, with the way things are trending, that come June, as far as being concerned about the health department and not following guidelines and potential for being somehow at fault for doing something wrong, that there's not going to be that high of risk, and that we should be getting, I think, pretty close back to where we were before and operating our public pools.
So it sounds like we've had quite a few changes since our meeting on Thursday with respect to operating normally. And the meeting started Thursday under the premise that we had no changes since last year operationally that we were allowed to really make, outside of the fact that bathrooms didn't have to be sanitized every 2 hours. So I'm all for operating normally as long as the health department is okay with that. So I'm kind of stuck here on, concessions or not. I don't know what all took place in the prior 2 days, but whatever Fred, whatever you suggest, and I guess whatever we can execute operationally, I'm fine with. I do agree that we need to open the pool or fill the pool and fire it up ahead of schedule. I agree with that. As soon as we're out of the freeze risk, if you will, given today. but I looked in Rec Desk today. They have online, they show different capabilities, they have videos, etc. It didn't look like scheduling was out of the picture there. The other software, Fred, what did you, if you don't mind, there was that additional add-on software that you mentioned. I thought that was financial or transactional in that sense. Can you share with us what the capability
With
includes?
Omnify, what we had spoke about.
Correct.
Omnify is a reservation software that was developed specifically for the reservation interval methodology, which a lot of the facilities were using. And what a lot of people did was have people just sign up automatically online through the software, and then we just simply would look at the names and match to make sure they were part of the community. And if they had their reservation or membership, excuse me, if they had their reservation, then they got into the facility. We used it in several of our facilities, and it was very successful. I would like to add, at this particular time, I haven't heard of any adjustments from the departments of health. We've been in contact with several of them. And we did have a conversation with Mike this morning. We went over and viewed how the new security system was in, and we did, Mike and us did discuss the fact that about moving as quickly as we were able to start prepping the pool for the year, because we are as well concerned because there hasn't been water in the system for a substantial time.
Thank you. And I know that the Rec Desk has like membership capabilities. I think we just need to contact Rec Desk. I'll make it a point to do that myself and try and find out what the full capability is. And I believe, Fred, if not mistaken, you mentioned that the software was interfaced with Rec Desk. Is that correct?
I believe it can be interfaced with Rec Desk. We have several pools that are going to be utilizing a similar system this year.
Okay. I know I've heard of Rec Track when I was calling around too, and that was obviously that's what the name implies. They're using that to track all of their.
Trustee Grumbles, if I may, and we do have the full capability to issue the season passes through Rec Desk. That's what we're set up for. But you're looking to do some additional scheduling as well?
Correct. If we have to do allotted time slots,
okay,
we'll have to have a system in place to do it. In the meeting we had Thursday, I believe we talked about verifying the capability in Rec Desk and testing it before we issue any plan, right? So we're going to need to do that, set it up and test it. That's got to happen. So we need to make sure we're moving forward along that path. Time's a ticking here pretty quick.
I don't know if anyone else on here can confirm, but I believe the city of Delaware is opening pretty close to business as usual and are not requiring any reservations. But I haven't been able to confirm that.
Well, if I could speak for Mike, Mike relayed to me today that he spoke to Plain Township and the city of Delaware, and that is in fact true. So, you know, what I think we're conveying is if the board really wants to go down the reservation path, there's going to be a lot more work. And there was certainly concern from the staff that was shared with me today that we just aren't staffed up for that level of, you know, if we start adding scheduling for community gardens and then daily scheduling for the pool, that starts becoming a concern. And the concern is no one's internally trained on that. It's not something the residents are familiar with. So we can go down that path. And I think that was the feeling when I talked to everyone today. If that's what the board really wants to do, we can certainly start making those purchases and trying to allocate that time. But I think talking to our sister organizations that if we just limit it to 300 some people, and if, talking to Mary Ann, maybe try to get a sense of when those numbers drop, finding a way to communicate, hey, this is the folks, you can come on in, or hey, these are our peak times or non-peak times. Try to do some of that communication. That might be a more effective.
It's a easier approach. There's no doubt. But when you don't have an operating plan and you open the front door and you have 500 people line up and you start picking and choosing who gets to come into your facility, it's going to create a massive problem, reactionary problem. We've known for months about the fact that we would be opening our pool, and we've discussed up until today that there was a high potential for block scheduling. So if that's known, then, and that's what we discussed as a collective group internally, we really need to have the conversation in that forum. I don't see how we can just open the floodgates and cross our fingers that we don't have any conflict management to take care of, because we're not staffed for that either. That's not in the contract. So I, would hope that we can look at this. Obviously, gonna take more time, and I know in talking with it, at least with Highland Parks, the Highland Park pool, they are moving forward with time slots consistent with what they did last year, or what they had, the software they have. If we have to work on staffing, that's okay. But a simple form creation and rec desk for a community garden that's 4 or 5 lines is a one-time transaction. That's not a justified reason to push back on a request and say that we're overwhelmed. It's one form.
Well, in speaking about that today, it was indicated to me that someone would have to become a member, make the request, and then then their invoice would have to be sent out. And upon the payment of the invoice, then the reservation could be completed. So it would be a highly manual process. And we'd have
On
to
the
use
pool side?
No, specifically the community garden. The pool side, what was communicated back to me was the conversations with Rec Desk led us to believe internally that we would have to bring in some other software or do it through some other vendor, that they just weren't set up for very complex scheduling and appointment. They're more for like one-off type scheduling. But again, the way that it was sort of left was, if we want to throw more people and money at this, they'll find a solution for us, is the way that I understood it. But it's just not, we've not set it up that way, and it would require additional involvement of software and people to try to set it up that way.
Right. But we're set up to sell a season pass, 500 or 1,000 season passes on Rec Desk, where people go and purchase and fill their information in, right?
That's
Correct. So they fill out.
And that's exponentially more easy than a one-time transaction for 100 community garden spots. It's the same thing. What's different about it? That's why I guess I'm perplexed here at the massive, manual workload for 100 spots. Sign up, it creates a list of people that have applied, they transact, you move on.
I think as far as concerns with capacity and making sure this is manageable, and then we don't have an overwhelming number of folks, looking at our other public pools and our neighbors of what they're doing. I think that's going to be the most accurate comparison, because there is, between public and private pools, there's a lot of flexibility that the private side has that as a public pool, community pool, we don't have.
As far as what? Like the health district coming in and imposing, or?
I mean, just as far as, obviously, if you're in the private sector, as far as software, labor. They're just, it's a bit of apples and oranges versus those of us, that have public pools.
That's why I called Highland. I think that's probably the closest facility that has playground and slides, et cetera, and it's in a municipality area that's publicly funded. So I thought that was a great opportunity to benchmark. Price wise, it's and experience wise. If there's a thought that we can open business as usual, and that's approved, that's fine. I was taking into account that the person that does pools for a living advised us against that with his opening statement on Thursday.
Gentlemen, this is Fred again. Now, I'm not sure on the conversations that occurred with Plain Township, but I can tell you I operate that pool and I haven't heard anything to the contrary at this point. They may have changed their mind and met individually, but I know as of last discussion, they were planning on doing 4 intervals during the day. They weren't sure how they were going to do it, and they were only going to open up to membership. Now that may have changed since my last conversation, but on my last time we did discuss things, that was where they were at.
All right. Well, I think there's clearly some alignment that needs to happen outside of the board meeting, and we can move away from this for tonight. I think for now, the takeaway here that I'm hearing is we're going to get the pool filled up and turned on ASAP. From a pricing standpoint, I believe I've emailed out everyone the prices at Highland. I would propose that we match those from a resident standpoint to be consistent with our surrounding areas. I know the private pools are much more expensive. Their resident rates were cheaper than ours. Non-resident rates were slightly more expensive. I think we should consider raising our non-resident rates more significantly, especially given that it sounds like we're going to move forward with no restrictions in place. And if that's the case, I would hope that we would incentivize our township residents who have funded the pool to attend and give non-residents an opportunity, not completely disincentivize them, but make them pay a fair share, if you will. So I would just ask that we consider significant rate difference.
Yeah, no, and I agree. We definitely want to move forward and make sure we're prepared and ready to go to open on time, and with there being a significant amount of time now that a lot of equipment hasn't been used, to make sure that everything's functioning as it should. And then, just to have some clarity here as far as if the numbers are going to be limited and what our scheduling is going to be. I think probably want to get that set in stone here before we settle in on the rates. And it sounds like there's still some more discussion there before we'll have that confirmed.
Well, and just to confirm, I mean, from an interested pool user party, I don't believe we've historically sold passes to non-residents. So, so we're talking about maybe a change to that process also.
We're not going to do that. I'm fine with it.
No, I'm just asking. I don't think traditionally we have gone that direction.
No,
Not
because we've always been overcrowded. So we do limit it to residents only, and they have to have proof of residency, but we do sell day passes to non-residents.
I like that. I like that idea. The status quo there. That
Well,
makes it nice.
I guess I'll ask the board, just so, especially with Bill leaving, we're going to have to try to get some of this put together this week. I guess the things that we would like guidance on, and that one of them was just discussed, is do you want to sell to non-residents in one way, shape, or form? I think our recommendation would not to do residents and not to do day passes at this point. So, I mean, I guess we don't need a decision today, but that's one of them. And then, what was mentioned with, if Plain Township sort of goes with the interval thing of having people come in and clearing people out and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we can certainly do that, but where I guess we needed to know is if there was an overwhelming desire to do the scheduling, because we just did not have the current capacity to do that. And we would have to go develop that and possibly contract with somebody else to get that done. So if there was a strong feeling that with our, whether we sell day passes or whether we do memberships, that we needed to have an appointment scheduling type system, then that was going to lead us down one path. If it was going to be, hey, we're going to open up and, let everyone in. And then when 2 hours, when we got to do the deep cleaning of the bathrooms and everything, say, all right, everyone leave. And then another group come in, or, it's sort of like you're there all day till you get up and leave. I mean, those are different animals than if we're going to create a scheduling and an appointment system. And that's where, again, I think when we had the discussions internally, we weren't as comfortable with that currently as it exists.
I think as close as we can stay to the status quo of our last season, being that hopefully we're in a good spot and it can function close to normal, but we still have the potential for some unknowns here and maybe some unusual circumstances. So as close as we can get to normal, and then if we want to revise or make changes for next pool season, and hopefully we've got a good pool year under our belt, that would be what I would be in favor of.
And I guess just one question, just from my resident standpoint, would there be an ability to have like a counter on our Facebook site or on our website to let people know at any given 2-hour slot how many are currently at the pool, so you don't show up, thinking you're going to get in when it's already close to capacity?
I asked Marianne about that today, and she said in the past, and Fred might be able to confirm this, we used to have somebody count as people came in with the little clicker thing. But we thought, since we're going pure rec desk, and this was going to be a follow-up for her, that since we're having people scan in, and we could even look at having people scan out, it seems doable that we can keep a count. Now, how we communicate that outwards, we haven't figured out, because that was sort of a new thought today. But it seems possible based on the conversation I had with Marianne.
And I think everyone's in agreement. We want this to be as easy and convenient for our residents to have access to the pool as possible. So with the question of software and technology and some of these other things, the last thing we want to do is try and do some stuff that will make it more convenient, then it turns out to do the opposite. So I think that's kind of going forward here, what we need to get squared away.
If you don't do day passes, I mean, little Johnny's gonna have his cousin visiting from out of town, and he wants to take him to the pool for the day, and then he can't bring him because there's no day passes.
Nope.
I feel like that could cause some issues with our residents.
I guess I'm still lost at, I was under the impression that the health district was going to lax up restrictions and such. But Fred was pretty confident that not as likely to happen. So if I'm still stuck at how we're planning and proposing to operate the pool as if this massive constraint that shut it down for a year just blew away and is gone. I'm just stuck there because we spent a long time last week talking about a situation that's rooted in the fact there are restrictions in place. So we need to, before we do anything else, it sounds like what we need to do is agree as a board on whether or not we're going to accept those restrictions, because I'm hearing a proposal to not accept the mandated restrictions. There's no way that a systemic tool or resource that's out there that exists, that is a package that the whole world is had to use, is as big of a challenge to manage for any entity as staffing a couple of folks with clickers in a pool system and then shutting the door or whatever when they get to capacity. I'm telling you, I don't understand where the disconnect is. How do you propose we allow folks to have purchased a season pass to schedule or manage their activities around the potential that they won't be number 351 with their entire family in tow? We have to have a way to schedule and communicate out an expectation. If you want to think about an unhappy resident experience, it's great to sit and talk about how we want to normalize things and make it as much as normal as possible. It's just not the reality yet. I don't know how else we can give a normal is not realistic until we know for sure. Otherwise, what's going to happen, there's two scenarios. Every day, there's going to be a group of pissed off people. That's alternative one. Alternative two is the health district comes and more than once we're in violation and they shut our pool down. Then we're going to have a pissed off township. So either we need to plan on a structured operation using out of the box software that's apparently $30 a month, or figuring out with Fred how he wants to upstaff the front of his operation so that we can somehow control the flow of patrons and deal with it that way. As far as pricing and decision making goes, I just don't think we're in any position to make a decision tonight. This is a complete 180 from our meeting on Thursday. So I think we need to take a pause here and align internally before we have a decision that's the magnitude of determining how we're going to operate our pool for a season. I'm just confused by it. So I would propose that we push this on and table it until the next meeting. If we need to have a special meeting, I think that's fine. It shouldn't be very long. We have a lot of work to do here.
Fred, you don't have any other input, any way you ran some of the pools last year? You ran some pools last year, right, during the pandemic? You have some experience.
We did run the pools, and I've been cautioned all along in talking with the departments of health. Nothing has changed. They don't intend to change anything. I understand the CDC and everything else is changing, but I thought Ben put it very eloquently here that at this particular time, there have not been any changes. Now, people are hopeful that there's going to be changes, but I don't see it. And every indication that we've met with the health departments time and time again, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 different health departments, and they're all telling us the same thing, that at this particular time, they do not anticipate any changes.
Well, then that's what we really need to stick with right now.
And Trustee Taranto, I mean, that's what Mr. Cowan and I were talking about. I mean, we're limited the number of people coming in. I mean, that's a hard fact. We're going to be limited to a number of people and probably have to give them the 6-foot boxes and all that kind of fun stuff. And we have to clean the bathrooms every couple hours and sanitize things. And
the bathrooms were off limits. I think that's the one thing that Fred said they don't have to do, right? It's all written down in our meeting minutes from the 9th. It's all pack in, pack out, no furniture, bring in folding chairs or blankets, social distance, no swimming lessons, ? Are we going to do swimming lessons this year? So we said no. Concessions all done by vending machines. Summer camps, we would contact and find out if they were planning on using. I got feedback from one camp that they still want to use the pool if they can, and they'll be very structured and whatever we allow them to do for 2 hours or whatever and pay for it and all of that.
You gotta be
Will
careful
we
with
ha-
that one too, Ben, because they'll run up that 350 person count, and then our residents will be really upset.
Correct.
They
That's why,
already don't care for the day kid, the day care.
take care. Yeah. And that's what Highland said. They have a 3 hour, I think, block or something where they're allowing that and then they cut it off and it's residents only. And they're
Okay.
doing a reservation system there where 3 days prior to the date of the, you can schedule 3 days in advance with a season pass. If you don't have a season pass, you can buy a day pass 1 day in advance. And that way they maintain capacity all the way up to the day of for their season pass holders. It's real simple to schedule if you're a season pass holder.
Well, and that's the thing that I'm bringing forward to the board is in talking to the staff. You can say it's real simple, but they're not confident that that kind of thing can be done. So if that's where the board wants to go, I will certainly take that back and we'll make it all happen. But it's not going to be without cost and diverting people from other projects. And again, with Bill leaving and absent a fire chief, I mean, my attention is already spread kind of thin. So that's why we're saying what we're saying is we can find a way to make it work. But if you want the appointment and scheduling, and we're going to try to create rules of certain people can do it on certain days and here, and we're going to block this, and it's got to be this age group and not this age group. And we have to invoice these people on a daily if we got to do refunds, and we got to, I mean, there's a lot of touching that will go on in this. And that's what came back to me as a concern after we had this meeting, is that it would lead to a lot of additional work that we don't have accounted for and that rec desk was not currently set up for. But like I said, I mean, if that is, and I talked to Mr. Cowan about this and Mr. Kelly, I mean, if that's the direction we go, we will find a way to make it work. It's just, there is definitely risk involved. There's going to be more transactions. If we have rain dates, we're going to be refunding a lot of people money. If we're going to create these little block schedules for seniors and younger kids, daycare and day camps and all that kind of
We
stuff.
don't have to do any of that. That's what another pool's doing. That's why I said it. We had discussed it in our meeting about having a discounted rate or an hour for senior citizens. We don't have to do that. That's fine. That's simple.
I just wanted to clarify, like, our recommendation is our recommendation. So if the board says, nope, we want it to have another way, then like I said, we'll have to purchase and staff up accordingly. But that is what I'm sharing with the board, is the feeling of the staff as I've talked to them, and some of the information that I got back, that some of our government counterparts are not doing the appointment type swimming. So I feel like I've personally exhausted this beyond all measures. So I mean, at this point, I don't really have anything else to add, but I appreciate the board's consideration on it.
One more quick thing. This is Bill again. Andrew, I totally agree with what you're saying. And just let the board know, if, again, it's our recommendation, but it's merely a recommendation. If you want to go in a different direction, I'm certainly not going to argue that point. And we'll be on board with whatever you decide. So
As far as our residents being happy and this being an enjoyable experience this summer, simplicity, I think, is the greatest odds here of this being a successful summer. So that's the only thing with the software and scheduling. I just, I don't know as far as how many hours that's going to be, labor, technology. Say sometimes it can be very basic. Sometimes there can be a lot more to it than you realize. And I would like to have some clarity on what some of these other pools, are doing that aren't taking reservations or doing it very limited.
Right. Sounds like we need to contact some other pools and hopefully get an email out, Andrew, I would think would be the best course of action on what they're doing. I'll send you the contact information for the gentleman I spoke to at Highland Park, and maybe go out and see if they've solidified anything in writing. I know on their website they had the price points, which I sent out, but they were still, he made sure to tell me that it was pending, that was their most recent proposal. So, and he was the pool manager. So I'll get his contact information and send that along. And then it sounds like there's a disconnect with Plain Township. Fred's managing the pool, thinks they're using time. Somebody conveyed that they're not. So maybe we can get that confirmed and go from there. I'm not opposed to having everything back to normal as long as there's no risk of getting shut down or us incurring some sort of other repercussion, and we have a way to control it. Essentially, what I'm hearing is that it's difficult to set up a scheduling system and manage it, and that we have to have a limited count, but we have no proposal on how we're going to limit the count. That was the internal pitch. Complete 180 from last Thursday, that by the way. But that if there's a way that you can find that's feasible to limit the count without scheduling, without it being Johnny on the spot, you have to go back home, then I'm all ears, would love to hear it. Other than that, I'm not going to acknowledge some way to integrate a count online because I don't think that's a viable solution given what I've heard today. So I don't know how else we would communicate out proactively to residents what the status of the pool is. I'm okay if we don't have daycares or if we don't have senior citizen hour or whatever. That makes it simpler. I think you need to firm up what we're going to do with concessions because I heard today reverting away from vending machines to opening the concession stand back up. So we need to firm up our intent there. The idea we met about on Thursday was reallocating staffing from Columbus to our one-way entrance and one-way exit to ensure people could come in and get out in a structured, controlled manner and not be delayed, since there wouldn't be 2 or 3 people in the concession area. So again, we need to firm this up because we may have a change order requirement. And it might be worth contacting the health district and trying to get a pulse on whether or not there's an update they can provide or a expectation as well. But I think we should table it for the time being.
Hey, Ben, can I just get 2 points in real quick? Because you had asked about restrooms and in listening to Andrew, Andrew and I think are on the same page, and we might be talking just a little differently on interpretations. With Plain Township not necessarily discussing a reservation system, they're discussing doing time periods. And restroom, what we had talked about was the fact that within the restrooms, because they're considered high touch areas, they do need to be sanitized every 2 hours, which is part of the program that we would do in cleaning the restrooms. However, to appease and keep the visitors happy by having sanitation available in the restroom so people can self-sanitize was something that the health department looked favorable on. But the sanitization of the restrooms, because we're a managed property, is something that we're able to do and keep through our deep clean on the hourly interval.
Okay, and you're going to use this spraying of pool water, essentially chlorine water.
Well, chlorine water, yeah.
All right. So the interval thing that you're referring to is that Plain Township is going to use. People come at an interval and then they have to leave.
Yes, they'll clear the pool. I'm not sure if they're going 2 hours, if they're going 2.5 hours, but they were planning on doing 4 intervals on the day, and they were discussing the fact of members only, or residents only, however they want to put it together. They're still heavily in discussion on that, but they hadn't discussed necessarily a reservation system, so I just wanted to be clear on that. But they have been discussing the interval where they clear the facility to do the 2-hour deep cleaning that the Department of Health requires on high touch points, because they can't do the 2-hour sanitization that is required if people are still in the facility.
So essentially they shut down every 2 hours and open back up.
Yeah, every two. And again, I'm not sure if they're going 2 hours or 2.5 hours. There's been some differentiations between some of the health districts. 2 hours has been, for the most part, common.
Okay. Well, I think if we're gonna talk to other areas, we might want to stay within our district. It would be.
Yep. No, I'm just letting you know. And here's the other side of it too, is if the health department's going to make a change, they're going to make a change before they really start working with their inspectors on what they want to oversee this year. So, we're staying as close knit with the health departments as we possibly can for any last minute decisions here, because what we've been told is once they roll it out and they're moving forward, that's what they're going to stay with.
Got it.
So we can
Yeah,
keep our fingers
okay.
crossed.
I was wondering why you were saying that in the meeting, and it makes sense now that that's because of the train up and the expectations. They don't want to change midstream.
Yeah, and we're just trying to stay as in touch with them as possible so that we can, as soon as we know something, everybody's on the same page and rolling forward. Our intention is go forward like we're opening everything, and then after that point, we make the decisions as we start going further.
Okay. All right. Well, that might not be a bad idea. If if you don't get in the first slot, then you go wait around for 2 hours or something, and maybe you get in on the next one. I don't know. All right. So we have a lot of work to do. Appreciate the clarity and having you on the meeting and your time last week as well, Fred. Thank you.
You're always welcome.
Grumbles, may I? Just one more thing.
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. I certainly wasn't, and I'm pretty sure Administrator King wasn't advocating for not complying with CDC or health department guidelines. By me saying let's open up as normal, I simply was referring to let's sell season passes. I understand your concern about shutting the door after we get 314 patrons in the pool. Absolutely a concern. But I think if we sell season passes, and if you're going to look at doing 2-hour blocks or whatever blocks you may, I think we talked about this at the meeting. They've already paid their fee, and they'll be allowed to get online and schedule for those blocks with no additional fees. But I understood that opening up as normal. That's simply what I was referring to, not
Right.
Let's not throw these guidelines away. It's just, I just want to be clear about that.
I understand. I think that the concern, Bill, is that we heard that we can't schedule online for a block of time. There's too much work involved in that, and so I think that is that's why I think we need to table this for now, because it's either a proactive. You're either proactively managing capacity or reactively managing it. That's the way operations work, period. Either we're telling people that we're full before, remotely, or we're telling them on site and in person. Those are our two options. That's it. Nothing in the middle. There's no telepathic, whatever, they can call up and check, I don't know. So I think how we execute that is one big takeaway of coming up with how we communicate, regardless of operating model. How do we communicate capacity to season pass holders, since we're not going to do it doesn't sound like there's an appetite for non-resident day passes.
And the health department, the impression I got, is looking to assist and help, not looking to come in and, you know, try and find violations or cause headaches. The health department wants to make sure that we have a successful, pool season. So that's where I feel confident we can get this operating in a place where we're not worried about violations or we're being outside of the guidelines.
Brett, have you had anyone call in a complaint for a pool you operated last year?
We had some people towards the beginning of the year when they were unfamiliar with the operations on how things were going to go, to where the first couple days they were upset, but the community staged well with their particular groups. They sent out letters, they had waivers and such in advance for people so that they were aware of what was necessary to follow. And once the folks got used to how operations were, it was probably one of the smoothest summers that I had ever had.
Good.
And I've been doing this, I've been in the industry for 33 years.
All right. There's comfort in that for sure. I'm hoping that there's no concerns with the health district.
I was thoroughly shocked because I was preparing myself for the worst.
Right. Well, we've all seen the videos of the worst, so it's not a. I think
Yeah.
people can go there. All right. If we're not worried about enforcement type issues, then I think that certainly helps. But again, I think we need to get a feel for that from the district and pause to go back and talk through how we're going to manage the capacity either way. If we don't need to manage capacity, if that's the proposal, then that's fine too. All right. I think the next item, Mr. Cowan, is the lease agreement and the garden discussion. I can just quickly go through that. I know Mr. Betts wrote a lease up, and the only request that Evans Farm had that deviated from the lease received was that we agree to pick up trash and things like that after we're done at the end of the year. Take all the stuff that we mess up or what have you. Leave it how we found it, kind of thing. But in with the lease, I think we need to get that signed sooner than later. And I don't know if that's Mr. King. I don't know if the changes and the edits required, if that's something we need to go back and forth on. And then what are your thoughts on that?
When I received what you sent me from Evans Farm, I sent it over to Chris. So hopefully it wasn't a whole lot of changes. So, assuming he approves it as to form, it shouldn't be that difficult to get back. I don't recall, did they, because I'm sure Crystal asked this if they didn't, did they satisfactorily identify the particular parcel of land? Because that might be the only thing that could trip it up, but.
Yeah, that's identified. It, and I got a confirmation again today. So we can, I don't know what the best way to identify it in there. Do I need to get the coordinates or whatever for the lease?
If Chris doesn't flag it as an issue, just some sort of description that I'm assuming it's a piece of a parcel, not a whole parcel. So, just enough to describe it. I'm sure then Chris will be fine with that. So that would be the only thing I could see from a legal perspective, tripping it up. Nothing that you told me about the changes, and I didn't get much of a chance to look over them. I noticed they were mostly handwritten. So I wouldn't, that would be the only thing I would expect could be a slowdown thing, but I can certainly check in with Chris on that. And if we need something from Tony or Dan, they've been accommodating up to this point. I'm sure they would work with us on that as well.
Okay. But the proposed cost is $20. It's a 10 by 20 plot. That's cheaper than any of the surrounding communities offer. There's existing wood in bed material that Evans has provided. It's consistent with the wooden landscape boxes around their property. And the fees will just go towards soil and such to fill up the spot. So I guess we'll have to pause and figure out a way to get, it doesn't sound like online's an option. So I think what I can do is just create some sort of MailChimp or something outside of the rec desk and go from there. I'll figure that part out. Really, all I wanted to do is bring it to the board's attention and ask if there were any concerns with having one person appointed to sign the lease once it's finalized so we can move forward, as opposed to having a meeting to do that. We've done that in the past. Trustee Taranto, are you okay with that? Trustee Rivers?
Yeah.
I believe it was for $1, right? That's what.
Yep, the lease is for $1, and it's going to be around an acre of land right behind the commercial area they're building, and there's a pond, so it's going to be kind of in between the two. So if there's no concerns with that, I think, Mr. King, we would need a resolution for that, something of that nature, correct?
I think some sort of journalized thing. I mean, if you all agree, I mean, Fiscal Officer Kraft could probably record it as consensus. It really doesn't matter, just so long as it's official action in the journal. If we ever had to point back to it, we say, hey, the trustees did that.
Okay. Well, then I'll sign it. I'll be happy to sign it once it's all agreed to, and take it over to Evans, have them sign it and bring it back to the township, so that we can move that along. And then I'll navigate through, find a sign up method if rec desk won't work. It should be zero difference from what we're doing for the pool and what was proposed. It's a one-time transaction. But if it is different, then I'll step in and do the legwork to get through that. All right, I think that's it for operations.
Hey, Ben, just following up on what just happened there. Are we doing a consensus then for you to accept and execute the lease agreement between Orange Township and Evans Farm for the leasing the garden space?
Yeah, for $1, correct.
The garden.
I'm asking for consensus. I asked for Trustee Taranto and Trustee Rivers to either consent or object, and I think I heard Trustee Taranto consent. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, consensus noted. Thank you.
All right. I know there's nothing on the for the fire report. Chief Rice, you have any comments?
No, sir, not tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, fiscal office, Ms. Kraft.
Okay, hopefully keep this short. Every year we have we submitted, just a kind of a process standpoint, we submit a certificate of estimated resources to Delaware County in the fall. And that kind of, sets forward what we have to, our estimate of what we have to spend. And then after we close out the year, we send them the final numbers. So we have a carryover balance. And what the first thing on the agenda is just accepting that revised certificate of resources from year end. So nothing really major there. Then I also have a liquor license for Little Bear Acquisition LLC. So I have a consensus item already to either hold or not to hold a liquor license hearing. And then lastly, we have February 2021 financials. A few highlights: our ending cash position was $22,978,700.30. Our investment mix hasn't changed from last month. Our department or fund cash balances are 5.8 million in the general fund, 4.5 million in roads, 5.1 million in fire, 5.1 million in parks. Our expenses through February 28th are roughly 2 million, with our revenue at 0.6 million, 600,000. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Lisa.
Welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. Agenda template pulled up here. Had to open a few documents when we were working. Okay. God. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-091, accepting and approving a revised certificate of resources revised February 26, 2021.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
and then I just need to know if we have consensus to not hold a liquor license, or if you guys would like to hold a liquor license hearing.
I'm fine with not.
Likewise, I don't think we need a hearing.
Okay, perfect. That's usually what we do each time, but just need to formalize that. Okay, thanks all.
Right. Mr. King?
I think anything I would want to talk about, we'll probably take care of as we move into executive session. So I'm good to go. I guess one last thing. We did this for Bill before, but since this is his last week, I just want to wish him well. I've again enjoyed working with him. I think he's done a really good job in a sometimes a tough situation. So I wish him well and hope he does well. And very soon, I think we'll be wishing Scott retirement on to bigger and better things. So it's been a great working with this staff. And Bill, I wish you luck, and I'm sure I'll talk to you as the week goes on. But thanks again for working with me over the past year.
Well, thank you. Much appreciated.
We'll miss you, Bill.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right. Mr. Cowan, thank you for your time at the township, and best of luck to you up north. I know your family will love having you back in the area. So thanks again for all you've done.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-092 to enter into executive session.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes. You may have to state do you have to state the reasons out loud?
yes, and actually, I think, good point, Ms. Taranto. I think.
Yeah, and I think we have to invite
He's
the
invited.
parties. Yeah. Okay. Reading from the template here, I think there was an additional resolution I received about that too.
Go
bear
on
with
back
me.
up, Val. If you could go back up to where you just were. That's what he needs right there.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-092 to enter it into executive session for the purpose of reviewing negotiations or other collective bargaining issues with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment, and to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee under RC 121-22. The board, Administrator King, and Township Council are invited to the executive session.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Split off into a breakout session. If you want to stop recording for now, and we'll come back on YouTube when we reconvene. Can you, Michelle or Val, can you please take us down on YouTube as well, please?
Ben, if I do that, I have to create a second video, so we usually stop recording. Is that going to be a problem?
All right, looks like we have everyone back and we're already on YouTube or maybe never left. And Andrew back in yet? Just waiting on Andrew here. Ready to make a motion to approve resolution 21-093 to return to regular session.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-094, tentative agreement between Orange Township and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 2952-2, Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Further, make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes. And good night, everyone.
Night.
Aye.